Welcome back. We're going to go to item number 5. This is a business item. It's a preliminary plat for Arcadia Springs, located at 500 West, 1400 North. Okay. Joe Colosimo is the applicant, and we'll turn the time over to Dave Stroud for the presentation.
Yes, the applicant, Joe Colosimo, he's here to request preliminary plat approval of Arcadia Springs. This is located approximately 500 West, 1400 North. This is a public meeting, not a public hearing, public meeting. The current general plan is low density residential. The current zone is R19. If you recall, this was came to you a few months back as a general plan amendment and rezone request. Preliminary plat would contain 63 lots, and you, if you see fit, would make a recommendation to the City Council on the preliminary plat. Again, a concept plan, you reviewed this on August 23rd, 2018. What you see there on the screen, that is the plan that was presented before you. The City Council did act on this on September 4th, 2018 by rezoning the property and changing the general plan designation. Going through the code, the R19 standards are what this was reviewed against, and based on what you see there, the proposal does meet the applicable ordinances. There are some that are obviously to be determined. Things like, you know, for the houses, the setbacks, obviously those aren't considered at this time, but those will be addressed and meet code for the R19 zone when that time applies. This you see here is the preliminary plat, again 63 acres. There is 2.29 acres of open space, 2.24 is required. This is the whole formula that we go through. You do have a copy of that spreadsheet in your packet. 2.05 equivalent acres are required, or excuse me, are provided, 1.58 are required. There are 178 amenity points proposed and 157 are required. So the improvement of this, and there will be improvement of city open space. So what the applicant has proposed, he exceeds the acreage, he exceeds the amenity points for the amenities he would like to install in the open space for the benefit of the residents. Here's the open space plan. Things you see there on the left, those will be items that will be included in the open space. Those do all have point values to them, which you can review in your packet on the spreadsheet. We add those point values together, the improvements he's making, square footage, those things, and then we calculate up the total points, and he does exceed what he is required to have. There will be a connection to the north, as you can see, a trail connection. Well, I'll go back on the subdivision here. Up on the north here, there will be a trail connection to the north to the Aspen Hills Trail that runs along there. There is a condition in the staff report to obtain to record an easement across the Central Utah Water property. They have discussed that verbally. The easement is not signed yet, so we would ask that if this be recommended for approval, to include the condition that that easement be recorded across that property prior to recording the plat. Again, the open space we've gone through there, landscaping as well. Again, the recommendation from staff would be to send a positive recommendation with the findings and conditions of the staff report. And of course, you also have the option to continue or to forward a negative recommendation to the City Council.
Okay, thank you. And do we have the applicant here? Would you like to come and join us? Thank you, Joe. I'm assuming you're Joe. Would you tell us your name and address for the record?
Joe Colosimo, 11795 South Taitland Rose Lane, Draper, Utah.
Hi, Joe. Did you want to add anything to the presentation?
The only thing is that I understand for me to get my 51st lot, I need a second access. I'm working with Dignity Care and Star Haven to, if their roads aren't done, to get an easement and build that section. So I plan on trying to do it in one phase. If something happens where they won't give me an easement or let me build their road, then we'll fix it so it's not 50, it's less than 51 lots the first phase. So the other thing that we're working on with all the neighbors is trying to do some city improvements outside of our project, a major sewer line, and we've had some real good discussions with Wildflower and WPI and trying to build some major city infrastructure. So we're excited about that part.
Sorry, I was trying to get my mic back on. Okay, thank you very much. This is not a public hearing, so we're going to turn this over to the Planning Commission for comment. Commissioner Chapman.
Just a couple of questions. Can you, when we reviewed Dignity Care, they talked about having a private gated community and having their streets private. And so I see that there's some connections to the west, and you alluded to having a 51st lot pending connections to the west. Could either staff or the applicant speak towards it or speak to that?
Yeah, if you look on the map, what's called Dominique Way right here on the north, that would connect in through Dignity Care, and then, if I recall right, would then go west for a little bit, then swing to the north to make a connection. I'm trying to remember the name of the road. Escapes me. That would be a public road through there. The rest of Dignity Care.
So Dignity did a small 16-lot traditional subdivision so that they could have a private entrance out of that, and that abuts to this Dominic Way. And so Cozy Lane would extend towards the south. Dignity Care is on the west side of that. This is on the east side.
Correct, yes. And
then they would share Cozy Lane. And is the anticipation that Cozy Lane would kind of wrap around, or is it going to continue all the way down to 400 North?
I think it would just wrap around. Yeah.
So there's a lot of, I live in Aspen Hills, and so, first off, I appreciate that you're having density that's consistent with the existing neighborhoods. I know that there's residents that have expressed some concern about Cozy Lane being a straight shot from Harvest Hills.
So what it is, if I can answer that, is so it'll come out of Cozy Lane and it'll go to a cul-de-sac. Right. And then as you come out of Cozy Lane, there'll be an intersection. You go right into Dignity Care off of a private entrance. You can go left to Dominic Way and down Arcadia to 1400 North. I didn't want the racetrack. I didn't want a straight shot out of Cozy Lane, so I wanted them to turn and have to come. I mean, it's somewhat of a straight shot, but then they'll be able to get to 14 North through me.
Yeah, if you could follow just on the map, what I've got here, Cozy Lane would come down to the south and be in a cul-de-sac here. It'll make the connection to Dominic. Then there'll be a private access into Dignity Care to the west.
So on the very left-hand side of the map, you can't really see it. The very left hand would be Cozy.
Okay. There it is. So Cozy would come down and cul-de-sac down in here. There'll be a spur off to connect to Dominic, and then there'll be private access to the west into Dignity Care.
Okay, that answers my question. I think it's a great project, being a resident of, you're a neighbor, like I said, we're glad that the density is consistent, open space, we're appreciative that you're providing a little bit more than you have to, it looks like. Excited for it.
Commissioner Kilgore.
David, I just wanted that code criteria table, was this used in the staff packet before? Because I really like it, and I don't think I've seen that before.
Yeah, that was one thing that we've kind of started to use of late. It's a lot easier to just take a quick glance at that and say, great, hey, it meets it, it complies. And so we're trying to utilize that now with that format with a lot more of our reports, because it gets the information out to you quickly and with not a lot of trying to interpret it.
Well, I like the simplicity and the straightforwardness of it, and sorry I'm talking about some, yeah, but it's terrific. I really like that. So this is an administrative action for us, for the Planning Commission. So I just want to ask, will the applicant comply with all the conditions in the city's staff and engineers reports?
Yes.
Okay. There's only one flag that came up for me in the staff packet, and it was under the landscaping plan. Said it can comply, but it was in red letters. Usually it's just in black letters, but this was in red letters. So for whatever reason, just wanted to ask, does the applicant intend to provide the easement that was requested? Because there was just no response, I guess, at the time that the packet was sent to us. And so I just wanted to.
Yeah, as I'll let Joe explain further, but he's been working with Central Utah Water. We actually have a draft easement.
Okay. That's
been prepared. It just has not been signed and recorded by either party. We just like to see that recorded. Obviously, we need the connection. We need the easement for the connection. Mm-hmm. We want to see that easement recorded prior to the plat being recorded.
Okay. So there's no real problem. It's just a matter of getting through the process then.
Right. Right now, I'm trying to get I'm not the owner of record yet, and so I'm trying to get the two owners to agree so that I can record it. Worst case, I buy it, sign the easement, record it, then we put the plat on top. So
Okay.
Shouldn't be an issue.
All right.
And that was a condition that David had indicated at the very beginning. So with whatever happens, there was a condition that was asked to be a part of it.
Oh, okay.
That the easement
I
be-
guess I totally blanked out on that. I didn't even hear that.
Oh,
Okay.
it's condition number 3. It's already there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's it for me. Thanks.
Commissioner Steele.
I just have one question. When you were calculating the open space, did you count the detention basin at 50% or at 100%?
It's calculated at 2/3%, or 66%, whatever, in the formula. It's not 50, it's 66%.
When did that change and where is it in our code?
It's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all the calculations follow along with that spreadsheet's been developed to comply with the code. We just plug the numbers in and he's under compliance.
And so with that being counted at 66%,
Yes.
it's,
Detention basin, limited access, you don't get full credit for it, obviously, because at some point there could be water in it, which
Right.
won't be there most of the year, but that's why you get partial credit for it.
right.
But yep,
Okay.
that's been factored into there.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the Planning Commission? None?
Happy to make a motion. After you.
Okay. Well, looks like we've discussed it.
Okay.
Are there any other questions you have for us?
I do not.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council regarding the Arcadia Springs preliminary plat with the finding and conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Oops. Item number 6.
Item number 6, this involves the Crossing Community Plan and Village Plan 2. There are actually 2 items with this, so we can go through these separately. And you have your staff report, which is comprises of 2 different motions for this. So this concerns the proposed Les Schwab conditional use permit at 148 West Pioneer Crossing. This is in the Crossing Community Plan and then Village Plan 2. The current land use is planned community mixed use with the planned community zone. This will be a recommendation to the City Council. The applicant is Stephanie Ray. Now, there will be a public hearing on the Village Plan 2 amendment and a public meeting section on the conditional use permit. So Village Plan 2, what they're requesting is a major amendment. That is why you are seeing it here. Minor amendments can be approved by staff, but this is coming to you as a major amendment because it is a development standard. They are requesting to vary from Title 19 in regards to signage. They would like to include the signage and the building elevations into Village Plan 2. And so this would kind of be very similar to what Fat Cats had done. Their building elevations and their signage plan is part of the Village Plan. Fat Cats signs did not comply with Title 19. So the nature of a community plan and a village plan, you can request something different that deviates from Title 19. And so the applicant here is requesting the same consideration that Fat Cats has received. So what you see here, these would be the signage and elevations that would be added to Village Plan 2. These are the working drawings. We've requested some changes to this, which is what you see before you now. They added some architectural elements, things like that, to bring that up to meet the requirements of the community plan as far as architecture goes. The pages that would be added to the village plan would be these next 4 pages you see here. So we'll show all 4 sides of the elevations and contains the signs, the sizes of the signs, and their construction. Right now, well, wait till I get to the next slide. Excuse me, a couple slides here, just to go through the elevations here. Now, right now, the community plan says Title 19 signage, although obviously that you can vary with that with this process. So right now, Title 19 would say 1 primary sign and 2 secondary signs are permitted. And a secondary sign cannot be in the same elevation as the primary sign. So right now, they could have a 314 square foot primary sign because Title 19 says you can be 30 square feet or 8% of the building facade, whichever is greater. So that would allow a 314 square foot primary and 2 157 square foot secondary signs for a total of about approximately 628 square feet of signage. The applicant is requesting to voluntarily reduce that by almost 70%. to have a 46 square foot primary sign and then 3 secondary signs at 50 square feet each. And there would also be one of the secondary signs on the same elevation as the primary sign. So total square footage would be about 196 square feet. And again, that's a voluntary reduction of about 70% of what they could have by just applying the Title 19 standards. And that would be the extent of what we need to discuss as far as Village Plan 2. The next slides will be the conditional use, but if we want to discuss, break this out separately and do that, or do you want me to go into the conditional use then as well?
Let's go through the whole thing.
Okay.
Then we will ask for the applicant to add if they want to, and then we'll do public comments.
The crossing community plan identifies this type of use under auto repair as a conditional use permit. And so right now, the way the code is written, site plans are approved by staff. However, I've looked at that. We've addressed the issues based on the code, but that is a tentative approval because obviously a conditional use permit could change something in the layout of the property or whatever it may be. And so the Planning Commission and Council will review that and place any conditions on the property if possible. Now that the code outlines that the conditions would be tied to siting of the structure or the use, traffic circulation, and how the proposed building and use fits into the compatibility with the surrounding environment. And then the standards that you would have to follow, the conditions or the use would not be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare. They would be consistent and in compliance with the land use ordinance. And then consistent, well, the misspelling with the zone and general plan designation of the PC and the PC mixed use zone. They would not result in eliminating the ability to provide essential service by the city, such as police, fire, utilities. We don't anticipate that would have any prohibition on that. And then it would conform to the intent of the general plan. So looking at the site plan, again, we go through it here. We address what the rules are, how does it comply, and how does it comply. And you can see on the screen there that the standards that it would have to comply with, they do meet what is needed. And then the site plan, they're proposing just over 10,000 square foot building. There would be 6 vehicle bays, and then they would provide 28 parking stalls. Just to give you an idea what the floor plan looks like, on the left side you see that would be the customer waiting area, the showroom, cashier, that sort of thing. And then the majority of the building, 2/3 of the building, would then be the bay area, the warehouse. They would have some racks inside, vertical racks, just to hold tires, supplies, that sort of thing. Then the landscape plan currently would be over 13,000 square feet, which is 23%. They would have to require to put in 8 trees, 5 of those deciduous, 3 coniferous. That is included, and 258 shrubs, which is far beyond the required shrubs that they need. At the community plan, there was an amendment to the landscaping along Pioneer that the city council wanted additional trees. So they would be planning 4 more additional trees along the Pioneer Crossing Trail. And all of the species that they are proposing would be drought tolerant. And again, we've seen this here. These are the elevations proposed. There's a mechanical screen on the top. So the very top elevation will be 28 feet. To the top of the parapet, you're just a little over 25 feet. Would consist of CMU, 3 different colors of CMU with some metal panels near the top, as well as mesh screen trellises to add architectural elements to the walls. And of course, glass, steel pergolas, which would be over the window areas. And again, there is a mechanical screen on the top up there. And then the village plan 2, this would be the first recommendation. Staff recommends that be forwarded to the city council with a positive recommendation with the findings and conditions. And again, you have the option to continue or forward a negative. Now with the Les Schwab conditional use permit, we recommend approval. Now in my staff report, I did suggest some possible conditions. Those aren't here on this screen because those are up for your discussion, whether you choose to include those conditions or not. One of those conditions was that there's no outside tire storage or display of tires. The applicant has indicated they didn't plan on having any tire storage or display outside. You know, a lot of tire places do that, but you could place that as a condition. That's what staff recommends. And we also recommend that, typically with auto repair places, they'll get vehicles that are being worked on because they do more than tires. They'll do basic, shocks, brakes, that sort of thing. Is that vehicles being worked on, that they don't stay outside overnight, that those go in the bays at night. Obviously, it could be a safety factor, a vandalism factor, and also an aesthetic factor that it would just help improve the look of the area in the evening. And of course, all same options as well, continuance or a negative recommendation.
Thank you, David. Is the applicant here? Hello, would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Ray with CTA Architects and Engineers, representing Les Schwab, 121 South Main, Livingston, Montana.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Corey Nelson with CTA Architects Engineers, 644 West North Temple, Salt Lake City.
Hi, Corey. And looks like you have someone else. If you want to pull up a chair.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Eric Rouse, Les Schwab Tire Centers, 20900 Cooley Road, Bend, Oregon.
Eric, if you wanted to pull up a chair, you can either squeeze in or come to the side. And if you need, we can get you an additional mic from right there from the podium. Okay. Did you want to add anything to the presentation?
No, I don't. Well, actually, we did bring a materials board. If the Commission wanted to look at the materials board for the proposed building, you'd be more than welcome to do that. I would like to thank city staff. You guys have an excellent city planning staff and engineering staff. They've been wonderful to work with, extremely responsive, and it's been a real pleasure to come to work in this city.
Thanks, Stephanie. Do you want to let us see that? We'll just pass it down or take a look at it. Or if you wanted to take some time and go through it real quickly, that'd be fine too.
Well,
You will need a microphone. Here's a mic for you. Eric, you're Eric, right?
I'm Eric,
Eric, there's a microphone right here for you.
All right. So as the planning director explained, the main body of the building consists of 3 different colors at CMU, a base that's black, that's hone face. The main body of the building is white, that's hone face. And then the top portion is the split face, that's red. And then over the customer service side, we'd have metal panel instead of the red CMU. The site fixtures would be a dark bronze to match the storefront, and also the mechanical screen on top will be a dark bronze. So,
Looks a lot different than other stores that we've seen from Les Schwab's.
temporary look.
Yeah.
Yep.
We can get to that in a second, but again,
What's the awning material? Or is that an awning or?
Yes. At the storefront, there'd be awnings around to the back side, and that would be steel that's probably powder coated the dark bronze color.
Okay, thank you.
all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing. So you're done with your presentation? Okay. So we're going to turn the time over to the public right now if they wanted to comment on item number 6, Crossing Village. Plan 2 amendment. Anyone here for that? Okay, while we're open with public comment, we did receive an email or 2. Do you want to read that in?
Dave, Planning Commissioners, Mayor, and Council members, good afternoon. I am against the Crossing Village Plan 2 amendment as it is item number 6 on the agenda, and I expect item 1 will occupy. It is a slippery slope to set a precedent by granting special treatment to specific businesses, vendors, but particularly something that is not cohesive with the current look of the city nor the future direction of what we want for the city. An exception for one opens the door to all. Please maintain the integrity of our aesthetic standards so that Saratoga Springs remains unique and not like every other urbanized hodgepodge composition. Les Schwab's request is for additional signage above and beyond what our other city tire stores currently have allotted. This would be unfair to the city's existing tire stores. More importantly, the requested additional signage is also inferior in design. The channel letters are ugly, to be blunt. See for yourself. There's a picture.
It's an old picture of a Les Schwab that was probably from many decades ago. Okay.
Thank you for your consideration, Heidi Baldery.
Okay. Any other public comments? Sorry?
Yeah, just to clarify, I did respond to that email today, and I do believe the lady that spoke first on
Yes?
Is Ms. Baldry.
Same
I did
person.
respond to the email, tried to address her questions, and that different building, different signage. Why they're doing it, I didn't get a response, but just for the record, I did make a response to her.
Okay. And what was, you want to just outline your response?
Just the fact that the signage is different, the building's different. What the picture she did submit wasn't an older building, obviously. Different signage plan. The nature of the community plan, where different requirements can be requested, and that the actual signage square footage is far less than the potential that could be there. The numbers I gave you earlier, the close to 70% reduction, just gave her the facts of what the request was.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, any other public comment? We'll close public comment at this time and turn it over to the Planning Commission for comment.
Okay, so the precedent was referred to when the council approved a sign variance, I guess, for the Fat Cats property. That was a split vote, I believe, and I agreed with the council members who voted against it. I don't think we should be granting these types of variances on our code. I think if the code needs to be changed, that should be addressed. Can we split this into two different motions tonight?
Yes, that's how I've had it.
Oh, it isn't two motions? I didn't see that in here.
One motion for the village plan amendment, one motion for the conditional use.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, I've got no problem with the conditional use, but I do have issue with the sign change.
Okay, other comments? We have Commissioner Kilgore.
I'd like to ask the staff if you know what was the reason for the sign elevation restrictions in Title 19 as they exist today? Why did we make it that way?
I don't know when it was made that way, but signage can be good, signage can be bad. You obviously have to have some sort of restrictions on that. In reality, what the applicant's proposing, if you want to call it I wouldn't call it a variance, but if you want to call it that just for our discussion here, their only change would be to having a second sign in the same elevation as a primary sign, and the size. A secondary sign is supposed to be 50% less, half the size of the primary sign. So that would be the two distinctions. And again, to their credit, they're reducing what they could do by 70%. So I do think that should be taken into consideration. Would they go that large? Probably not, but the door is open that someone could do that amount of square footage of signage on the building. But Mark may have a better idea of the signage if the code has changed, but it's before my time. But obviously the restrictions are there for aesthetics, for visual. You have to have a sign big enough to actually can see it, to know what's there. And so it's the standards we have now is what we're using.
Okay. I was just thinking if, since it's part of the process, since the process does allow it, and as the staff packet mentioned that Fat Cats went through the same sort of thing, and if we did grant if the restrictions weren't there for a particular reason, like for, I don't know, dark sky or I don't know, some drones flying overhead or something like that. If it's not a safety type of issue, then I'm willing to consider the application and as it was granted before. I mean, you could just say the caution of not allowing one applicant of not approving a request once so that it becomes a standard can also go the other way where we did approve it, and so not doing it further then disadvantages others. So I don't know, I could go either way, I guess, with that. If there isn't a specific reason, a safety or some technical reason why we had the restriction there in the first place, we have changed things like building height restrictions, things as the city grows, and so it's something that we're learning with. But I do ask maybe the staff next time we do revisit signs that we look at that again and see if there is a reason, especially if other applicants come and ask for it, because if we're just granting exceptions all the time, maybe the signage restrictions that we have is not really something that's absolutely necessary. Now for the conditional use permit, that's an administrative action for us, so I just wanted to ask the applicant Are you expecting to comply with all of our conditions in the city staff and engineer reports?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And that's it for me.
So as far as the history, Sandra, Commissioner Steele was indicating I might have the definitive answer on our history. No, I don't. But I do know that we've discussed this many, many times, especially on your tenure. I think if you kind of look at the one extreme, and we'll call that Traverse Mountain, where you can see it from space. And if you take a look at like Orem State Street as another kind of extreme example, I think the council over the years has struggled with, and the Planning Commission and our community is struggling with, what is it that we want to look like? What is it that we want it to be? And obviously we have different people and different flavors and opinions, and over time we will continue to evolve, I think, as was kind of intimated. I think that the council is very much interested in looking at this. However, I think the change is very slow, and I think that they consider some things, and as was indicated, we did have a split vote on some of the other applications. You have to remember, within the DAP, they have their own unique code, and they have the ability to do this. And the council said, okay, we don't love the idea of some of the signage. However, we're willing to experiment with it a little bit within the DAP. So I think that there's definitely within the DAP and there's outside. Outside the DAP, I don't know that the council's willing to really give much. I think inside there's certainly a little bit of a consideration that could be given. I don't think that we have a large, relatively speaking, a large commercial presence yet, and so I still think we're trying to define what it is we want to become as a community. So, great questions. I don't have an answer. I just know that we're trying to work our way through it as best we can, and obviously your recommendation will be, what we take to the council, and we'll let them take a look and let them further define what that's going to look like.
Okay, let's go with Commissioner Cunningham.
I was going to say I'm in favor of the signage allowance within the village plan. I like that they've reduced this overall size that they'd be allowed, so I'm okay with it for that. And where it's within the village plan where we've already allowed it for another use, I'm okay with that. Now, wanted to ask David, do we need to add verbiage into the motion for a condition on the outside tire storage and the car parking, or
that is going to be up to you, whoever makes the motion. I offered it as a suggestion for food for thought, something to discuss, and so that will be up to you.
I would be in favor of adding those two items, and that's all I have. Thanks.
Commissioner Steele.
I am concerned about several things with the signage. Is there any way, instead of having a simple cabinet, that you can do the cabinet signs that have a little bit of a curve? Simple cabinet signs normally are thought of as about as bottom of the line as you can go. And this is an upscale development, and we want to keep it upscale with the types of signage, the types of architecture, as you found out. And so I'm wondering if there's any way that we can get something other than the simple cabinet.
Commissioner Steele, could you clarify when you're talking the simple cabinet sign, is that the alignment breaks?
No. No, it's your... Or
is that the primary?
Yeah, what it is, our code defines a simple cabinet as that basically don't have any rounded, you want to call it a rounded side. So you'd have to have at least one element on that sign that has some curvature to it. There's no definition of how much curvature. Okay. It just can't be basically straight.
I don't know how you want to address that, Commissioner.
Yeah, Commissioner Steele, I would say that we have over 480 stores in 8 states, and all the signage is the same. And so to change the signage for this particular development, I don't think that that's something we'd be inclined to do, if not required.
Well, I can't support a simple sign because I've dealt with signage before on many projects, And this is not an unusual request from a city, and certainly not an unusual request in an upscale neighborhood. And I believe you could get a curve on your Les Schwab sign. And I wanted to ask more about your channel letters. Are your channel letters attached to a bar or to the outside of the building?
I believe the channel letters are one continuous sign. And that's part of the signage packet that was submitted. Or 20-inch individual letters.
Yeah, on the diagram on the screen, you can see they're mounted to the backing. They're not just strictly a channel that are mounted to the building itself.
And that, again, is a simple sign, a simple cabinet almost, because there's no curve on it. I'm unwilling to support that in this area. And I would be inclined not to approve it or be supportive of it anywhere in our city, because we have asked that there be no simple signs. And even your channel letters are basically a simple sign, a simple cabinet. I was on the commission when the code was changed. And the reason we changed it was there were times that we had a maximum of 3 signs, but there was this, at the discretion of the council, they could add another one. We've taken that discretion out of Chapter 19. And so it's kind of wants versus needs. And you do have a monument sign, and you've got it on your plan. You haven't shown us what that is, but I think some of the issues could be handled with that, with some thinking about how you place your signs on the building. Why do you need to tell somebody in the back of the building that you're Les Schwab? You've just driven in, you've made the curve, and you're going into a bay. You already know you're Les Schwab. So there's several ways to do this where you would meet the standards of Chapter 19 of our code and still get done what you want to do. If you would make the signs not simple cabinet signs. You could put a Les Schwab sign on facing the street, and then one, the tire or the alignment brakes and shocks on the other side, so that you have a sign here and a sign here, but you don't have, then that would give you 3 signs. I don't like seeing a second sign on the front of the building at all. If you had 50,000 square feet, yes, we would allow it, but I don't think you come close to 50,000 square feet. I have to stand firm on the that you get 3 signs on the building, and I guess it's up to you where you put them, or if you use Les Schwab on all 3 sides and don't put up the brakes, alignment, and shocks. But I would stand firm with the 3 signs, because I really don't see the need for one over your bays. You already know you're there. I also have a little bit of an issue, because we have had tire stores come in, and they have been able to comply with the code without asking for any extra. And it gives you, If it's really, really needed, then it gives you an extra advantage. I don't think it's needed. I think with your monument sign and 3 signs on the building, I don't think there's a chance that anybody's going to not know that you are Les Schwab and in town. I concur with the staff recommendations for conditions 1 and 2 that should become 5 and 6 of no outside storage or display of tires shall be allowed, and that customers' vehicles shall not be located in the parking lot overnight and shall be stored inside the bay area of the building when the business is closed to the public. Do you agree with those?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's all.
Commissioner Chapman. I'm sorry, it's listed up here, but Anderson, go ahead. Nothing? Did you have something?
So I'm okay with the signs because of one sentence in this report. The applicant is voluntarily reducing the maximum permitted sign square footage by 70%. That is not unsubstantial in my mind. You could have, from what it looks like, a giant sign that would completely, to me, would be more harmful to the aesthetics. And I understand we're talking tomato because I don't know that you know, my opinion is more valid than Commissioner Steele's, or you know, there's different ways to approach this. But I think the fact that the applicant is reducing that by 70% is notable. One of the challenges I think we have is, and this is in a unique district area plan place as well, but sometimes it becomes difficult to judge one business against another. You know, there's another tire store in town that has bright red neon at night, and you know, their sign is neon, and you can see it from, I'm using hyperbole, but you can see it from space. And you know, around their building is bright neon, and so there's, you know, it's hard to compare two different businesses. But for me, I think, you know, if you were not willing to reduce the maximum permitted sign, it'd be a no-go for me. But because you're doing that, I think it makes it doable. Although I do share a lot of the concerns that Commissioner Steele does about the type of signage, and you know, it could be more upscale and you know, different things like that. I'm certainly in favor of the 2 conditions, as you've indicated.
Any other comments? Okay. So I'm looking at your competitor that's in our city. 3 big signs on the building on 3 different sides, 1 monument. I'm not going to say the name of it out of respect of those present. So I want to be consistent with what we've done with other people. You shouldn't have they shouldn't have an unfair advantage against you. So if this is a legislative decision, I know that we only pass forward a recommendation to the city council, but I think we should remain fair to your competition that you have. Secondly, there's another one that's an auto body place north of here, and we've made similar conditions based on them that they could not have vehicles outside at night or store product outside. So I want to be consistent with that as well. So that's where I stand on that, and thank you for coming tonight. I mean, your product, it seems it's really nice, and if you look at it from a comparison of your competitor, your signs are really little. So that's why I think the way, and I'm looking at them right now on Google Earth. Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm going to entertain a motion. We'll get a button that does that in the future.
Remember to have you to break those. There's 2 motions, one for the village plan amendment, one for the conditional use permit.
That is right.
And the village use permit is strictly for the signs. Is that correct?
Right. It's adopting the signs and the elevations, just like, you know, Fat Cats, when they came through their building, and signs were included as part of the village plan. That's not required of any commercial business in the village plan, but in this case, that's what they're asking for.
I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council regarding the proposed amendment to the Crossing Village Plan 2 with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion and a second.
Which
one is this? Hold on. This is the Crossing Village Plan 2 amendment.
This is the sign.
And you're doing the signage first.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And the conditions are not, the tire condition is for the next motion, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, for the record.
Who was the
Those
second
who
on
are
that
aye,
first?
we have Commissioner Chapman. Kirk.
Second it?
I seconded it.
Okay, so those who are in favor, raise of hand. Commissioner Chapman, Commissioner Wilkins, Commissioner Kilgore, Commissioner Cunningham. Those are opposed, by raise of hand. Commissioner Carn, Commissioner Steele. And there we go. And, sorry.
Get Bryce down there.
Passes 4-3. Yes.
And Commissioner Anderson, sorry. I'm going to use your last name. It still passes.
Yes.
4-3. Okay, there you are. Thank you.
Recommendation, positive recommendation goes
For
forward.
the second one, I'll entertain that motion.
I move to forward a positive recommendation with the conditions of no outside tire storage, and that any vehicles left overnight be stored inside the bays of the business, to the City Council regarding the Les Schwab conditional use permit with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Cunningham and a second from Commissioner Anderson. Any question on the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Mark, if we have a condition that they can't park outside overnight, this is a parking lot adjacent to Fat Cats, it's adjacent to Smith's Marketplace, other businesses. How is that enforced?
Well, I think Boyer will enforce it.
Do you think they will?
I do, actually.
I mean, how's movie theater parking not bleed over there if it's a busy weekend?
Movie theater will bleed, but I think if I remember, they were going to be cleaned out by like 1 or 2 in the morning or something like that, if I remember
So our
correctly.
code enforcement officers there at 4 in the morning?
Our police could, yeah. I mean, it's...
I see how we do it in other locations if it's a standalone spot, but this is a mixed parking lot.
But it's also a shared parking lot.
Mexican food.
It's a shared parking lot, and I think if you've got cars that are just there for long periods of time, that becomes problematic. And I think some of the fear stems from, I think, or some of the maybe the reasoning behind doing that is with other car repair shops, you don't want a vehicle to be left there for days or weeks on end. Sure. Because they haven't figured out what they want to do with it or whatever it might be. And so there's a reason for it. I'm not sure how the applicant feels about that particular condition, but bottom line is we don't want this over time to creep into, there being cars left there for periods of time, longer periods of time.
There's no similar condition on surrounding businesses, right? Smith's Marketplace. If someone leaves their car in the Fat Cats parking lot overnight because they go home with friends.
Smith's is open 24/7, so.
Okay.
So that's, aren't they?
So let's look at like Fat Cats. If someone gets a ride home with a friend and they leave their car overnight in the parking lot right next door where it's connected.
Not going to get towed.
There's not a condition on them, right?
No, don't see it. Well, I think the point of this is that you don't have a broken up vehicle outside that looks ugly.
Yeah.
Right?
And I understand
you're
that.
in a
I'm
shared
just on
parking
enforcement.
lot space anyway.
But also, the difference is, the Fat Cats is not allowing, Fat Cats are those other businesses.
That's a good point.
No, Fat Cats and other businesses aren't making a conscious decision to keep those cars there, whereas we're asking that the applicant makes a conscious decision to remove all cars that they're servicing inside.
I guess I don't have a problem with it. I just don't know how you enforce it.
Yeah,
All right.
the burden.
Is there a question?
No.
Okay. I have one question. This was brought up. What are your feelings about this?
About
these two conditions?
The two conditions.
Oh, I'm fine with the two conditions. It's our business practice not to leave cars in our parking lots overnight, and we have inside tire storage.
What happens if someone drops a car off the night before? Do you have a key drop?
No, we don't.
So no one can drop a car off
Not
after
that I know of,
hours?
sir. I don't know that for certain, 100% certain, but it's not our general practice, no.
Okay.
Any other questions on the motion? Kevin? You good?
I would just ask that, actually, just really briefly, one thing I noticed is, and this is probably just something that could have been addressed ahead of time in the staff report, there's no citation to the code requirement that makes those restrictions a requirement. conditional use permits, you can't just pull a condition out of the air. You still have to base it on the code. So I would just ask him, I would imagine David's got a code citation or reference.
Good point.
You have
Not
that,
off the
David?
top of my head, no, but it could probably be under junk vehicle if something's not operable.
Hopefully you'll have that by the time it goes to city council.
Yeah, and the community plan, as far as storage of tires, the community plan doesn't, you have to have storage approved, a specific location approved for any storage of merchandise in the crossing community plan.
Well, we're talking about the conditional use permit, not the village plan amendment.
Right, but part of one of the conditions is for storage.
We'll have to find that. So this conditional use permit goes to the city council, correct?
Yes.
And it's not a planning commission approval?
Right, it's forwarded to the council.
Okay.
This is a recommendation.
We'll make sure that we wrap that up.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Welcome to the city. Well,
Thank you.
assuming that our recommendation is adopted.
That's right.
All right, thank you.
It's, if I can get my,
We're going to push through. All right, item number 7, public hearing, general plan amendment, rezone, and concept plan for Finlayson property located at 1193 West Fairfield Road. Doug Thim is the architectural nexus applicant, and we'll turn the time over to planner Nora Shepherd for our presentation.
Have to get to the, there we go. We have a request for a general plan amendment from low-density residential to community commercial, a zoning change from residential agriculture, RA5, to community commercial, and then review and comment on a non-binding concept plan. This property is located along Pony Express, and as you can see, this is our transportation master plan. Pony Express is proposed to be a major arterial, so it's going to carry a whole lot more traffic than it does now. Right now, there are not commercial businesses in this area, but it's likely that as that road becomes more major, that this may be an appropriate place for commercial to occur. We've been working with the Finlaysons for quite some time about various ideas about land use. There have been discussions about single-family residential. There have been discussions about all kinds of various uses on this. The current request is to change it to community commercial. So the diagram on the right is the general plan. So it shows low-density residential for this area. And then on the left is the zoning. So right now it's RA5, 5-acre minimum, but not too far off is R36, which allows triplexes and is more dense. So the proposal is to rezone. The community commercial zone, this comes straight from the code. The purpose of the zone is to allow, excuse me, for medium-sized commercial developments near residential neighborhoods with establishments that will serve the nearby community. Improvements such as trails, seating, and lighting that would help create gathering spaces and promote pedestrian activity are expected in the community commercial zone. This is a concept plan that has been put forward with the rezone, which is what we always require, that a concept plan be put forward as well. It's showing office uses in yellow, retail uses in blue. The existing house that is on the property right now, the Finlayson's home, that's being shown eventually as a reception center. And then the big kind of purplish blue thing in the middle is a warehouse or data center. They have done some preliminary calculations on the amount of parking. It is not anticipated that this data center will have a lot of employees. It's anticipated that it's few employees and lots of machines. And certainly, as we move forward, we'll need to work out things like how much water it's going to use and those kinds of things to make sure that all makes sense. And that those things will all have to be done. All you're looking at now is a rezone in the concept plan. If it's rezoned, they have to come back in for site plan approval, and depending on the kinds of uses, perhaps conditional use permits. So the Planning Commission's role is to find that the proposed amendment furthers the purpose of the Saratoga Springs land use element of the general plan and of Title 19. The general plan has a lot of discussion about the importance of commercial and employment centers and creating a variety of types of jobs. And so this is clearly consistent with those sections. There's criteria for review, which was included in your packet and is on the screen. Ultimately, this will be decided by the City Council, but you're being asked to make a recommendation. One recommendation on the general plan, amendment to the general plan land use map from low density residential to community commercial. A recommendation to the City Council on the amendment to the zoning map from residential agricultural to community commercial. And then before you make those motions, it would be helpful for you to provide comments to the staff and to the developer on the concept plan. A little bit about the concept plan. If you go out on this site, there's some big power lines that go right through the middle of the site, not right through the middle, but they're prominent. And this site plan does not take that into consideration, but we've talked about it with the applicant and they feel comfortable that they can modify the site plan to respect those existing utility lines. Other utility lines that are associated with this project will have to be buried. There have also been discussion about whether the streets from Pony Express to the road behind, whether those want to be public or private. And those things, again, will be decided as this moves forward and are subject to ongoing discussions about that. They would be required to improve the frontage along Pony Express, where it sort of augment what's there right now. There's some drainage, there's an open ditch, and so there's some drainage improvements that they'll need to make. So we have been meeting with the applicant and the engineer and the Public Works Department to talk about some of those items. Those things all come really at a later stage, but the applicant has been made aware of them. So the staff would like the Planning Commission to make comments on the concept plan and then a recommendation on the land use and the zoning. And here are motions for both of them to do all kinds of things. To recommend denial, motion to continue, recommend approval. And we are requesting that you can forward a motion to the City Council for both the general plan and the zoning amendment. Is one motion.
Thank you for your presentation, Nora. Is the applicant here? Good evening. Doug, could you introduce yourself and provide your address as well?
Yes, Doug Tim, 2025 Parley's, East Parley's in Salt Lake City.
Doug, did you want to add anything to the presentation?
You know, I'm sure as the commission is well aware, Nora does a great job in presenting. I don't think I have anything to add at this time other than to thank her and the rest of the members of the staff who worked with us to get to this point, and also to thank the commission. I know you take your time to come and serve your city, and I admire you for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Doug. This is a public hearing, so we're going to open up public comment right now on item number 7 for the general plan amendment and rezone and concept plan for Finlayson property. Given no comments, we will close public comment and we'll go open to the Planning Commission for comment. Okay, Ken Kilgore, and then we'll go to Commissioner Steele after that.
I think I have only one question, and it's a little early, but just wondering, since you did put propose a data center warehouse, I was wondering if the applicant has any potential tenants in mind for the data warehousing buildings, or it's just an idea you had?
I guess I'm the idea guy.
Okay.
And there were thoughts that we had in terms of what the uses would probably want to be for this area, especially in view of some of the other things that are going on, let's say, to the east. We felt like having small commercial along the edge on the main thoroughfare that's running through the city made a lot of sense, and then having employment opportunity and that sort of thing set back from that, and acting then the whole parcel acting as a buffer for the kind of lower density residential that then starts to surround to the north made a lot of sense as well, but no particular users have been identified at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Nora, just a second. We're figuring out our buttons. Go ahead.
Thank you. We have put these folks in touch with David Johnson, and they have been communicating, and he has some ideas and has been working with some folks who, so there are some things in the works. There are discussions that are ongoing.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
You're done, Ken? Okay. Commissioner Steele.
First of all, I want to thank you for not bringing any more housing in that area.
You're welcome.
I think we need the commercial down there. I will ask the staff. It is not, the warehouse data center is not a use that is called out in our uses. And is there, what can we do so that it could be put there?
There's a land use category that's called research and development. I can't remember the definition off the top of my head, but research and, yeah. And the definition has enough play in it to allow this to be.
Okay, that's what I had written in my notes, but
yes.
I wanted to make sure I was on the right track.
I can read you the definition if you like, just under research and development, if you care.
Okay.
Definition of research and development is an establishment which conducts research, development, or controlled production of high technology, electronic, industrial, or scientific products or commodities for sale, or laboratories conducting educational or medical research or testing.
I think we can bend it enough to.
And we don't know what the use is really going to be, so we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay. The concept plan looks like a doable, but I've got a few heads up for you. And this is real early. It's the concept plan. I understand that. But parking on a sit-down restaurant needs to be parked at one space per 100 feet. And for your offices, I don't think you'll see a lot of medical wanting to come in, but you may want to provide a little extra parking in case there is a doctor or a dentist or a physical therapist or any kind of medical come in, because that requires 5 spaces per 1,000. And then, you are the architect on this, you said?
Yes.
Are you real familiar with the ADA?
Very familiar, yes.
Okay. So on the reception center, it's always a concern when it's an existing home trying to get it to be ADA compliant. Wider hallways and everything. If you're aware of it, that's all I'm going to say on that.
Very much aware, and just for your background, the way the code reads is that we would be actually changing the use. as a result of that change of use, there's not a whole lot of grandfathering that can go on in terms of skirting issues such as ADA, nor would we want to.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much. This kind of goes back to a couple of the questions that have come up. One of the things that we've identified in our economic development planning is a shortage for flex space, for office space, and for places for people to go. And one of the things that we're hoping is that this becomes somewhat of a bit of a catalyst, if you would, for us trying to move into more flex office space and other spaces that really there's just a huge demand for. And as fast as it's getting built, it's getting consumed in this area. And so those are the types of uses we've discussed with the applicants. We're anxious to, from an economic development standpoint, we need jobs. And we keep, you know, people keep using the word commercial. Commercial's great, but we need jobs. We need job creations. We need job centers. We need really a better balance to our economic development pro forma, if you would. We have housing. We've got that nailed. We've got some great commercial started, and we hope that that continues. But we see jobs as really being that critical, you know, jobs and services and other things that really will help us balance our community in what we're trying to become. So we're from an economic development standpoint, we've worked with the applicant, and we're very much in favor of what they're proposing.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Cunningham.
Are you going to have, I guess it's kind of still early. I'm kind of excited about this. I know right now the company that I work for, the trend for our customers is to like move their stuff to the cloud, which all that really means is their server someplace else. And this would be great, I think, if we could get somebody to come in. A lot of the smaller businesses don't want to take care of their own servers. They want to have them off-site somewhere, which this would play right into that. The other thing is I'm kind of excited about the reception center. One of the pictures, which was further in, had a lake in there, and I was just wondering if you're going to have, one of the things I like to do on my lunch break is go for a walk, and if there was a trail or something that people who work there could walk around the lake or something, that would be great. That's all my comments.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson.
I like that this is coming east to west, coming from Eagle Mountain in. This is the entryway, right, into, on a main thoroughfare into our city. So we're excited to see what that, you get to play that piece for us, that entry doorway in, coming from the east. So that's just my comment.
Well, thank you.
We want to feel different than Eagle Mountain, and I like that these restaurants and other things are sitting right across from Eagle Mountain residents, and they can come shop in our businesses. So that's great.
Well, good.
Commissioner Karn.
I guess I don't have a whole lot to add from what's already been said. I like the land use for this area. I would love to see the landowner to the east continue this concept up next to Lexington Green. I think that would be a great use for that, because right now I think it's zoned low density residential, which all of a sudden doesn't make a whole lot of sense right there. But I think this is a great spot for this. I agree with Commissioner Cunningham. I'd love to capture all these tax dollars for the Eagle Mountain residents driving through our city every day. And this is a great spot for them to get their morning coffee, get their morning croissant as they drive through and go to work. So I really like this concept. And I like the reception center. I think that's a big need in our city. I think it's a great idea.
So it is a cool idea, and you know, the commission actually makes a statement by doing some sort of a rezone or being in favor of a rezone and working with the council, and actually starts to make a statement in terms of what real good planning is along a major thoroughfare like this. So it's interesting that you brought that up.
Amen. Thanks for bringing job centers to our city and some places for people to spend money.
Okay, so this was brought up before, Commissioner Steele. Just wanted to ask you, in the event that the data center, it looks like what you'd have in the data center would be secondary to walking. You wouldn't have a lot of people that would want to go into it. Maybe you would, but it seems like the parking in the event that your use changes from data center, you would need, if it went to office, for example, you would need more parking. What is the parking calculated? For which use is it calculated?
That would really be determined at the site plan or conditional use stage, how we were going to try to figure out where the parking goes. Again, because of that overhead power line, things will shift around. Right now, they actually are proposing relatively few parking spaces associated with the warehouse or data center, 20. And they're only talking about the kind of use they're looking at. They were talking about, what, 8 per shift or?
It's a very low number.
Very low number. But we would have to put conditions that if it changes the use, we have to relook at the parking.
I've seen that happen before. There was a large warehouse in California, and it converted into office space. And of course, they charge you heavily for fees, but the parking was a main issue. It already took up most of the property. It looks like you have some room to grow. But, yeah.
We have a section in the code if, say, the data center's there, they go out, a new user comes in, and we have a change of use permit, where we've got to address and analyze, okay, the use that's coming in, can it still be viable? Can the parking still meet what's needed in the building? So that we do look at that when that happens.
It's just too bad. If it were a data center, it looks like there's too much parking right now. But if it changes use, so I guess find a good happy medium. Any other comments on this one? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to forward to the City Council positive recommendation regarding the Finlandson mixed-use general plan land use map amendment and rezone as outlined in Exhibit 2 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated December 6, 2018. Is that the correct date? Today's the 13th. Okay.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Carn. We have a second from Commissioner Anderson. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Looks like we have another commercial use coming our way. Good job. Thank you. Item number 8, this is a public hearing, update to the Saratoga Springs Transportation Master Plan, an element of the general plan. Turn the time over to Gordon Miner for that.
Good evening, Commission. We updated the Transportation Master Plan not long ago. And right after we did that, then we received an application for Beacon Point. And that triggered another update. So that's what we're seeing tonight. And it's primarily for, Dave zoomed in here, the changes in the Transportation Master Plan that are proposed are primarily in this area north of Beacon Point, west of Redwood Road, and south of Pony Express. One other, we did take the opportunity, being as we were opening the document, we took the opportunity to, in another portion of the document, to move the concept of bus rapid transit and eventually light rail. We moved it from Pioneer Crossing to Pony Express. So that's another change you might have noticed there. So that's the background here. It's fairly simple. We just realigned the roads there in that area that I described. And that was much to SLR's desires. One change from what we see here today as a result of comment that we received from UDOT is the intersection that you see on Schoolhouse Boulevard. Not that one, the next one, that one. Yes, that you see is just a four-way. Actually, on the west side of that intersection is a very large steel power pole for that very large transmission line system. And since we published this for the Planning Commission and so forth, we received comment from UDOT saying that because of that power pole, they can't support an intersection there, and of course, any light that might be associated, traffic signal that might be associated in the future. So, so I would propose, if the Planning Commission chooses to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council on this update to the Transportation Master Plan, that segment, that intersection be removed, and that segment west of that intersection be removed from the master plan. Those are my comments, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Thank you for your presentation. We'll open up public comment now for item number 8. Public hearing, update to Saratoga Springs Transportation Master Plan. No comments. We'll close public comment. And we'll open this up to the Planning Commission. But before we do, actually, we did have a comment. So I will reopen public comment. There was one that we received an email to you. I'm going to enter that into public record.
Those ones that I gave you are for the specifications, unless there's a different one. The ones that I gave you before the meeting are for the specifications.
Okay. We'll hold that till the next one. The specifications, though, let's see, these construction standards are for the next one, and engineering standards for the next one. Closing public comment. Actually, if you wanted to say public comment, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, and we'll take your comment. Okay. We'll open the time to the Planning Commission now. Let's see, Commissioner Steele, you're first, then Commissioner Cunningham, and then Kilgore.
I am looking on page 46, which is shows the Schoolhouse Drive and Redwood Road and how the intersection would work. Now that we are not going to have anything there, how will there won't be a straight through intersection. So what will happen?
Oh, so that's a mistake. That needs to be removed because UDOT doesn't support that configuration.
Okay, but what happens?
It would remain a T intersection just the way it is.
Okay.
So if you could add to the motion, if you support it, to remove this.
Okay, what is to the south of the Western Road? And I don't see a name on it.
Well, that road doesn't exist. That's the one that SLR proposes. That now UDOT's saying that intersection won't work.
So SLR is going to have to do something different if they want that to be a major.
They'd have to move the pole.
They'll either have to move the pole or move the road.
Well, they wouldn't be able to move the road because then it would be an offset intersection, and I mean they could have another intersecting road from the west. But, you know, if you step back and look at this from a larger picture, it wouldn't be a very advantageous intersection. It'd have to be a T intersection because it wouldn't intersect with another road on the other side.
And it looks like it's with the lanes and the turning and everything, it looks like they really wanted it to be a major intersection. And so I guess when we get the village plans in that show this, they're going to have to do something different than what they've shown us and what's shown there. Is that correct?
Well, they haven't shown you anything yet in this area. You know, in the community plan for Beacon Point, this area was shown. Of course, it's not in the boundary of Beacon Point, but it was shown, and we commented to that, to the problems associated with this intersection. We commented that this intersection would be addressed at the Transportation Master Plan level, and now we're addressing it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Cunningham.
On figure 3.5, I think it's page 22, that shows there's going to be a BRT and like a tracks line, or would it be a BRT and then turn into a tracks line?
Yeah, the BRT would come first.
But they, okay, but they would kind of be on different routes if the tracks line goes in?
No, so that's just an interpretation. You know, maybe we could clarify that. The idea is that BRT would come first, and as ridership increases, then that would be replaced with tracks.
But they would kind of follow the same route.
Yeah, it'd be, yeah, it would be replaced. The BRT would be replaced with the tracks.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Kilgore.
I have 3 typos I wanted to get to you. I'm sorry I didn't send an email, so I'll just stop by a little bit later if that's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So my only question is, I'm just wondering about the overall process of forecasting. How did forecast predictions and recommendations in the previous versions compare to what actually happened? Do you see where
So
I'm trying to get at?
I came tonight prepared to talk about just the changes in that area that I talked about. So we weren't opening up the whole document. So that would be a question for the master planning consultant who's, you know, did that modeling. And so I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah, I guess because we are now making predictions for this area, I was just wondering if our predictions in other areas kind of held true. Otherwise, you know, I just wonder how the fidelity of being able to make these kinds of predictions when we're going out to 2040 and possibly 2050. And I'm just wondering, do we have a lot of confidence in the methodology that we used?
Well, I don't think, really you're talking about a calibration of this, because they use a model, a computer model,
right?
And it's a regional model. And so I believe your question goes to calibration of that model. And the only way you would calibrate the model is with actual traffic counts, and we don't have those. Any studies that we do around the city are very isolated for specific isolated reasons that data wouldn't be able to be input into that model and mean anything.
Okay. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Any other comments from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Carnes?
Is this the, sorry, agenda item that D.R. Horton had a question on, or is it the next one?
That was the next one.
All right, I got nothing.
All right, what else do you need from us?
Just the recommendation, and again, if you choose to forward a positive recommendation, especially relative to that intersection, that it be removed from both the map and that other figure that was shown.
Everybody get that? Anybody who wants to propose that? Okay.
We're not making are we making a recommendation or are we moving to adopt?
Recommendation.
I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, somebody else.
I move to forward to the City Council a positive recommendation regarding the approval of the update to the Transportation Master Plan presented December the 13th, 2018, with a note that the map for the schoolhouse intersection be removed, and the map on page 46 that shows the schoolhouse intersection be removed.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. let's move on. Or do we need to have a small break? Are we good? You want to push? Okay, let's go. Item number 9, this is a public hearing, update to the standard technical specifications and drawings manual for the city of Saratoga Springs. Gordon, back to you.
Okay, so, you know, just from time to time, we try to make revisions to keep the standards current with engineering, current engineering practice and deal with different situations we're presented with. And so we have just a number of changes that were shown in red. This information was sent out to the development community, sent to the Utah Valley Home Builders Association, and also to a number of developers who are doing work in our city, including Ms. Travis, who spoke in the open forum earlier tonight. And she mentioned something about a figure saying perpendicular versus angled, and actually I sent out a revision to that, so apparently she didn't see the corrected one that was sent out. So that was already corrected.
So it doesn't say angled perpendicular anymore?
No, it should be. It should say angled on-street parking, ST-35.
Okay.
That's the revised one that I sent out. We received some comments about those. I've given those to Commissioner Wilkins before, and so I don't know when you'd like to read those in. I'm happy to address them and others at the appropriate time.
Okay, so you're done with your presentation?
Sure.
Okay, so first of all, since you're done with your presentation, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open up public comment for item number 9. Stan, you're good? Okay. And we're going to close public comment then. And this, let's see, so to read this into the record, do I have to have public comment open? I'm reading in an email. I'll just read it into the record. Okay. This is an email from Deanne Hewish to Gordon. Is this hello, Gordon?
And she's with the Utah Valley. She represents the Utah Valley Home Builders Association.
Okay. It says, hello, Gordon and Mark. I'm sorry I'll not be able to attend this evening at the Planning Commission hearing on the proposed revisions to city standards. I have 2 developers call me after I sent out the notice on it and told me that the road revisions will be a great savings to them and still provide a quality road base. The developers were D.R. Horton and DAI. Thank you for letting us know early about the public notice. I've sent out the notice twice to our builders. Best, Deanne Hewish.
So if I may, I can expound on what she's talking about. You'll see in what came in your packet were a couple of sections from the engineering standards about soils and backfill. Until now, we haven't had the ability in our standards for developers to utilize on-site soils for structural fill. And so in working with consultants or geotechnical consultants, highly specialized engineers in pavement design and soils, we developed this standard that allows developers to use soil from their sites. They still have to process it, just like a commercial pit would, but they can process it on site. And if they're able to show the quality control and show that they're installing it correctly, then it can be used as subgrade, which means below the pavement section. So we're talking about fill sections where they need a substantial amount of fill. They can use it there, and then we design our pavement section based on that. So then we'd have subbase, subbase, road base, and pavement on top of it. So they like that, and we like it too now that we're proposing a method by which we can control how it's installed.
Does that affect the Mountain View corridor? They're taking like 50 feet down.
Well, you know, UDOT uses their own standards, so.
Okay. All right, so you gave me two other handouts. How did you want to handle these?
Go ahead and read them.
Okay, this is proposed Saratoga Springs construction standards. In reviewing the proposed updates, I have the following comments. This is coming from you, right, Gordon?
Yes, and I believe this came from, I believe it came from Greg Magleby, who is from LEI Engineers and represents a number of developers in the community.
Okay. One, sanitary sewer, item number 4. Previous correspondence has indicated a peaking factor of 4.0 would be applied to 8-inch lines, but is not included in these updates. 2, sanitary sewer, item 5. The state standards allow for shallower sewer slopes. While it is agreed that minimum slopes are not the best alternative in all cases, some projects would benefit. At a minimum, the code should allow for review on a case-by-case basis. 3, tables 8 and 9, minimum pavement sections based on classification. These tables should be reviewed by a geotechnical engineer regarding the CBR values related to subgrade requirements. In addition, footnote B may be very subjective. Number 4, section 02116.1.6.e. This section should be reviewed by a crushing operator. The testing requirements appear too restrictive. Number 5, section 02116.3.4.a.1, update to, quote, use common borrow with CBR equal to or greater than the native layer below, end quote. Number 6, ST-35, angled on-street parking. This detail results in excessive long parking stalls, and the 2-foot distance between the sidewalk and curb is not useful or maintainable as landscaping. All right. And then did you want me to read in the engineering standard conditions?
No, that would be, so I think at this point, I'm ready to entertain all of those issues and other issues that the Planning Commission, questions or whatever the Planning Commission might have. So I can entertain any of those when you want.
Did you want to also respond to Chriselle Thomas or Travis's questions that she had?
Sure. And
did you take notes on those?
Yes. So whenever you'd like me to do that too.
This time's yours.
Okay. Well, let's just move to Ms. Travis's concerns. Ms. Travis mentioned that her plan was approved by the City Council and she was already moving forward with it. That's not true. Her plans are not approved. Her plans are still subject to much review, and the direction that I received from the City Council was to develop a standard and bring it back to them, and that's what I've done. So with regard to the standard that we have here, this has been reviewed by staff, developed by the engineering department and reviewed by staff. To the best of our effort, it is what the council wants. And so, and actually we've had exchanged some emails with those who, the council member who made the motion, the other council member who seconded, to get clarification on angled or not. And so we believe that this is what the council asked for.
Well, this is not something that city staff wanted. We don't want to have to maintain parking basically for private development. And so we developed a standard that would allow this to happen because we got direction from the City Council to do that. But we had to make sure that it wasn't going to create or wasn't going to put an impact on the city. And so that's why the standard is a very high standard. If they choose to have this type of parking, which we don't really want or encourage, but if they choose to do that, they have to comply with this high standard. They can figure out other ways to handle it. They can have it be private property off of the city right away. So Chriselle is correct in the sense that it's a high standard, but that's up to us to decide for that. because we don't want it. We don't really want that type of parking. We don't want to encourage it. If they put it in, they have to meet our standard, which is admittedly high.
All right, we'll let you guys work that one out with her.
Without additional questions on that, I can move on to the other.
Let's do it.
All right. So number 1, sanitary sewer, item 4, about the peaking factors. I agree with that comment. And so what I've provided you is a page with just a few bullets where I say recommended changes to add to the motion. And so in response to item 1, I've said to make the peaking factors 4 for 8-inch, 2.5 for 10-inch to 15-inch, and 2.0 for greater than 15-inch. Item number 2, state standards allow for shallower sewer slopes. Well, the purpose of this, these updates to the sewer standards, to the engineering standards, the purpose of bringing this to you tonight is not to open up the entire standards and specifications book. So this comment doesn't address any of the changes that are proposed tonight. So, we'll take it under advisement for a future day, but it doesn't speak to the proposed changes tonight. Number 3, tables 8 and 9, minimum pavement sections based on classification. These tables should be reviewed by a geotechnical engineer. They were. This was, it was reviewed by Tim Beal of PEPG, who is a highly reputable geotechnical and pavement engineer in the state. Number 4, section 02116.1.6.E. This section should be reviewed by a crushing operator. We believe that Mr. Beal understands this industry, and so we'll trust what Mr. Beal is recommending. If we find that as we try to implement this, if we find refinements, then we'll certainly make those refinements. What we're proposing here is miles ahead of what they had before. So the next one. Use common borrow with CBR equal to or greater. Sure, we'll change that to the equal to or greater. Last one, angled on-street parking, and I think we've discussed that. So, so there were a couple other comments that came in. There was a comment about the change in the detention ponds in private to allow detention ponds in private lots. And there's a sentence in there that restricts it to only that private property owner. And we believe that's too restrictive. And so, I propose to remove that restriction about maintenance only by the lot owner. On the earthwork specifications, there was a comment about adding criteria for when a third party is required for quality assurance. Agreed, and so that's why I've recommended to add that to the motion. Also, there were some concerns about definitions to define some of the engineering vernacular words that were used, and so we can do that. And then last, there's a detail, a standard in here for, it's called 45-foot antenna pole, and that, I apologize, that title is just wrong. It's a small cell wireless pole standard. And so what we're trying to do here is, by state law, wireless companies are now allowed to put up smaller wireless monopoles like you see in this figure. They're allowed to do it by state law. So therefore, what we're trying to do is kind of define how that happens so that we don't end up with all sorts of different standards and try to get some uniformity to it. So that's what this poll is. It's an attempt to do that and also comply with state law. I made a mistake in here where it says 50 feet. It should say 50 feet maximum instead of only 50 feet. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. We'll open this up to the Planning Commission for comment. Looks like Commissioner Steele, you're up.
On that same diagram that you just put up about the antenna, you have it titled 45-foot antenna pole.
Yeah, so it should say small cell wireless pole. Apologies.
Okay. Well, and for the parking issue, I say hallelujah. I think this is the right way to go, and it still preserves the space that's needed for a front yard. And so I have no problems with this one. That's it.
Commissioner Kilgore.
I was wondering what the reason was. Was it just, I don't know if it's just editing, but reason for removing 3.4 backfilling section? The whole section you deleted, and then there is subsequently, I think, a whole new chapter or whatever it is.
Oh, yes, because that section was all about importing fill. It didn't give the option to use on-site material.
So that's why you got rid of that particular section?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, I should have thought of that too. Yeah, makes sense. And that's it. I have one typo, so I'll talk to you about that later.
Thank you.
Okay, and that's it for me.
Any others? Well, I'm not going to pretend to tell you how to do your job, so I'll entertain a motion on this.
I move to adopt these proposed revisions to the city's standard technical specifications and drawings with the following modifications. Changing the sewer peaking factors for 8-inch equals 4.0, 10-inch to 15-inch equals 2.5, greater than 15-inch equals 2.0, remove the restriction about maintenance only by the lot owner in the detention ponds and private lots. Under earthwork specifications, add criteria for when a third party is required for quality assurance, define the engineering vernacular words, and under small cell wireless pole standard, add maximum to the height so that it would be 50 feet maximum.
We have a motion from Commissioner Chapman. Do we have a second?
A second.
Commissioner Steele is a second. Any question on the motion?
Yes.
Let's start. Oh, you have a question on? Okay, let's start there. That's interesting.
Well, this is going to be a recommendation, right? Not adoption.
Right. That was one thing I was going to.
I revise the motion to say recommendation.
Okay, and our second?
I accept that, and
Thank you.
I still have a question. Do you have anything in there about alternative products? Maybe substituted if deemed to be equal and approved by the city?
I do not.
Oh, yes. So I thought, so did that light standard make it into your packet about a light pole?
Yes.
Oh, so yes, then I was thinking, wow, I got to bring that back.
We don't have a light pole in here.
Yeah, it was in here. Street signs. No, I'm sorry, that's the antenna. Sorry.
That's the.
Yeah, I don't think it got included in there, so I'm just going to have to bring that back.
Will the alternate, was that the only thing that the alternative products may be substituted?
Yeah, so I don't know if from a legal standpoint, if we can just take that recommendation from the Planning Commission and
That's fine. I mean, you're making it's less restrictive. I don't think any due process rights are going to be implicated by that.
So I can tell you the background behind that. This is a request that was made from the Public Works Department for all of the standard light poles. And what they'd like to do is introduce another vendor so that there's competition there. And so Commissioner Steele, if you wouldn't mind repeating what that wording was, because that was correct. That's what we want to add to that standard.
Our street light standard was set, so basically only one vendor could provide it. That wasn't intentional. It was So yeah, Gordon is correct. Now we want to allow other vendors to be able to provide the same quality of streetlight.
Okay, so the question Commissioner Steele has, you want to propose that you add this wording, you're proposing to our motion.
I propose to amend the motion to add the note on all the light pole standard drawings that says alternative products may be substituted if deemed to be equal and approved by the city.
I find that favorable, Mr. Chair.
You adopt that? Yes, and the second?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, and thank you for picking up on that, Commissioner Steele.
Okay. Next is the business item. This is the schedule for our Planning Commission meetings for 2019. Has everybody taken a look at that? Okay, if so, I'll entertain a motion.
There's not a motion in the packet. Do we just?
Well, we need to adopt it. So you can.
Okay, so I move to adopt the 2019 Planning Commission schedule.
We have a motion? Second. Second, Commissioner Cunningham. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, approval of minutes, November 15th, 2018. I'll entertain a motion.
I have a comment.
Sure.
Line 285, it says that Ken Kilgore voted aye. I didn't vote aye since I wasn't here.
That's a good comment.
Then who was that man?
Someone might have changed the vote.
I expect you won't be voting on this motion then as well. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of Thursday, November the 15th, 2018, as written.
We have a motion.
Except for the, Ken Kilgore was not in attendance, and therefore did not vote.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ken, don't even try. We have a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And please let the record show that I abstained.
Done. Reports of action.
No reports of action.
Commission comments.
I don't know if you guys were aware, but a couple months ago, the city council made sure that Kevin's going to stay with us for a little while longer, sounds like, when I hear. So congratulations, Kevin, on continuing with the city.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, I wasn't planning on going anywhere, but yeah, I was very appreciative of that. That was a nice gesture.
Is that an appointment? Is that how that works?
No, they approved a contract. I've got contract terms before I was completely at will, and so they approved a severance, a small severance clause, or short severance clause. So it's nice. It provides some job security.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you.
That's great to be here.
Some more.
Yeah.
Director's report.
I have one.
Oh, we had another one?
Yes. With the mixed residential, I think I've talked with you before, and I don't know if anybody else agrees with this, but I'd like to revisit that. I think we found some things that were lacking when we approved North Shore. And there were a lot of things that were, I was told, oh, that comes later. You know, you're asking it too soon. But that was our last chance to ask those questions and get answers. And so we need to.
Yeah, if you like to stop by the office someday and sit down with us, and we can just hear your concerns and go from there.
Okay. Is anybody in objection to that?
No. Okay. Okay. Director's report.
Have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you January 10th.
All right. Without objection, we adjourn.
Well, in fact, no, then I back out
right?
I think we did it right.
Everybody, great job. Great job on that.
Yeah, you know, the whole engineering standards, that's kind of something the legislature is making us bring their planning commission now. Well, it's not the legislature yet, the developers are really pushing to do that, so we decided to kind of get ahead of the curve and start doing it. I guess I should complain, but it's like our engineering English is still on. It's not something that the planning commission should even.
Hey, you're rock star. Thanks for staying with us.